Welcome to Spiritual Insurgency. I'm Jason Lupo, joined today by my co-host Aaron Lujan.
Good morning, Jason.
And I guess the question of the day is Biden really alive?
I think the last 4 years has proven that he's not.
I mean, the auto pen sure has been alive.
The carcass that moves around and talks and says, "Come on, man," that proves that
It's
he's.
like Weekend at Bernie's.
It is. It's the weekend in Washington with Uncle Bernie.
Now, we've been saying this for a long time. I think that if you look at pictures throughout time, like there appears to be like 5 or 6 different Bidens. With
Yeah.
And actually they didn't even choose a really good job at they didn't do a good job of choosing a replacement Biden because some of them look pretty drastically different.
We need to bring into question the director of casting. That was a horrible casting call.
So, but now, not only are we saying it, but the sitting president of the United States is also saying it. Aaron, you have this story pulled up. Give it to us.
NBC News. The White House did not. Or let's back up. Trump shares unfounded conspiracy theory claiming Biden was executed in 2020. Trump didn't explain why he amplified the baseless claim, which suggested Biden was replaced with other entities, like space aliens. President Donald Trump on Saturday night reposted a baseless claim on the Truth Socials that former President Joe Biden was executed in 2020 and replaced with clones or robots. Now, did he actually say clones or robots, or is this NBC being NBC? Because I don't think he actually said clones or robots. I think he is. Can you pull the original Truth Social
I'll
post?
pull the Truth Social up. I think he did, if I
'Cause
recall right.
The original post made an anonymous Truth Social user who often spreads. Again, this is NBC News, ladies and gentlemen, so take it with a grain of salt. Um, who often spreads outlandish claims, suggested that Biden was replaced with clones, doubles, and robotic engineered soulless, mindless entities. And this was all in quotes. Quote, robotic engineered soulless, mindless entities. So this must have been maybe a repost. But here's the deal, guys. The gap, the chasm between the corporate narrative and the internet is moving closer and closer together. And this story is emblematic of that point. What you have is a powerful echo chamber and hundreds of millions of people on the internet sharing information that is forcing the hand of the corporate media to bare minimum at least acknowledge. Whereas before, had this not had the internet not had the power that it had before, this would have been unauthorized material. So it's very interesting because I remember in 2020, uh, a lot of people putting out theories that this was not a real inauguration, that we had not actually elected Joe Biden, and there was this military presence in Washington D.C. Do you remember any of this, Jason?
I vaguely do. I pulled up. Number one, it looks like it is a reshare that Donald Trump had. That called him a robotic clone. But here's an article from 2022, July 28th. False claims of deepfake President Biden go viral. This is the BBC. Um, this is saying that there's no way it's fake that Biden is Biden. But I mean, if you look at these pictures, I mean, they just look like drastically different people.
It's not the same person, bro. I mean, it's like we're not all stupid. We're not all fluoridated robots and lemmings that just do whatever the corporate narrative is at the moment. We look at people and we can see facial differences. I look at who they're claiming to have been Joe Biden. The ears are different, the eyes are different. I mean, I remember I grew up with Joe Biden. I'm 44. I've been following politics since I was 8 years old on my parents' living room floor, watching the nightly news with Tom Brokaw. Remember Tom, good old Tom Brokenjaw?
Yep.
So Joe Biden was on TV constantly. Joe Biden's face is burned into my memory. And then they roll out this like bingo player guy. Like I didn't know who he was. Like this is like I guess I went with the flow. Maybe peer pressure. Everybody's saying it's the thing. Um, but there's definitely a lot to say about inauguration day 2020. Do I get into that, Jason, or did you want to share some more about the post?
I mean, go into it, but like here's an article. This is just interesting. Did Joe Biden have plastic surgery? It shows a picture of him in 1987, 2007, 2019. Um, Others have observed changes in the shape of his jawline and cheekbones, which could also be a result of plastic surgery. I just like to think that Joe Biden had plastic surgery. It just seems like a very, easy excuse, but nobody else has claimed that Joe Biden had
And would
reconstructive surgery of his face. It's just weird.
and would that not have been a news item that the president of the United States is undergoing plastic surgery?
Well, they're claiming this happened before like 2017.
Well, he was a powerful, famous senator prior to 2017. That would have been at least. I would like to think that
Well, don't forget he was also
the vice
the vice
president
president of the United States.
Yeah. So if he was getting plastic surgery as the vice president, I would argue that would have at least been somewhere in the news cycle. I mean, because that's a surgical operation that carries risk. They're going to report the vice president undergoing that type of procedure. Wouldn't you agree with that, Jason?
Yeah, I feel like the entire world would know that Biden had plastic surgery. And then he's been in front of the camera like nonstop, like for his entire career long, basically the entire time he's been alive, been in office. It would not be hard to try to figure out, hey, at what point did he have plastic surgery?
Well, the difference in his face happened right up until 2019, 2020. I mean, that's when he changed. So I want to talk to you guys about Inauguration Day 2020, the military presence, the gun salutes that were going on that some people are pointing to as further evidence of unusualities. The National Mall was closed to the public that day. It was surrounded by fencing. I remember seeing the really tall chain link fence with the barbed wire on top, similar to what you would expect in a natural disaster erected by National Guard. 25,000 National Guard troops were in attendance, far more than the previous inaugurations. They're also saying that that this was indicative of a potential soft coup preventing public scrutiny of the event. Other conspiracy theorists have claimed that this was not just about security, but about hiding something such as an alleged death or the use of a body double. Now, you have the 21 gun salute anomalies. It's customary for an newly inaugurated president to get the 21 gun salute. And this was held under a scrutinous eye because skeptics have pointed out that the timing and execution were off, that it didn't follow the standard protocol. And if you are privy to military custom and tradition, if it's not done the way it's supposed to be done, it doesn't count. And so a lot of people are looking at that saying, so are they implying without saying it that we're not actually installing Joe Biden? Or oops, Freudian slip, I said installed. I meant to say we're not inaugurating Joe Biden. When you hear that, Jason, I mean, is this outlandish? Is this unreasonable? Or are these fair points?
I mean, they're all fair points. I mean, obviously, especially as you look at the decline, the very rapid decline of Joe Biden throughout that term, and even before, during the run up to 2020, when he was running for president. I mean, it did not look like the same Joe Biden as was there in 2015, 2014 under the Obama administration. And there's just so much about this story that is coming out in regards to Joe Biden's presidency, the auto pen, the fact that Joe Biden really wasn't aware of anything that was going on. If it truly was Joe Biden to begin with, it seems like for 4 years in this country, somebody was running the country, but it sure as heck wasn't Joe Biden. And I don't know as though anybody really knows who was running it, other than the fact that we saw some of the most heinous crime committed underneath that administration, the most horrific influx of illegal immigrants into this country and terrorists into this country, and just an absolute crapshoot when it came to international relations and the amount of wars and the amount of tension that rose throughout the entire world during that time, because the United States didn't have a strong leader keeping anybody in check.
Yeah, it's all very strange. If this was a personal circumstantial issue, nobody would believe the person that's making these claims. But here's my big question that I haven't heard anybody ask yet. What does Trump expect to happen when he brings this up? What is his intention? Where is he going with this? I mean, he's the sitting president of the United States, the one of the most famous person on the planet at the moment, and he made the most incredulous statement. He basically said that we don't know who the president was the last 4 years. He was dead, and he's pointing to a potential nuclear weapon underneath the surface. Like, I mean, what are the implications of this statement?
I mean, there's a good chance that this is like a magic trick. Like, look over here while this is going on. Like, at number one, there's a vast majority of the public that believes that Trump just tweets or shares whatever comes to his head. I don't believe that to be the case. I think Trump is a very calculated man. I think that
Absolutely.
does everything for a reason.
Absolutely.
I think that Trump may have shared this to maybe direct the news cycle away from things like the One Big Beautiful Bill,
Maybe.
away from things like what's going on in Israel and Palestine.
Perhaps.
But it's also, people. He's Putin's best friend. Well, if you look in the last couple months, he's actually kind of really gone after Putin pretty hard in the media, going, okay, it's time to be done, Vlad. It's time to be done.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting because he's a very relational guy. He holds some very strong relationships with some very powerful people across the world. Has very unique relationships with them that we haven't seen with anybody other than maybe Reagan and Gorbachev. But he's got that kind of relationship across the globe, and this ability to impact what's going on globally every time he makes a post on Truth Social, every time he made a tweet, every time he gets in front of the public. I think one of the really big cues when it comes to this Joe Biden story is the fact that we went 4 years really not being addressed by the president of the United States.
Yeah.
He was probably the least seen president that we've ever seen. And if you recall, back in 2020, they kept him underground during that race too. I mean, he was campaigning from his basement. Remember that storyline? Remember that headline? That
if you're not voting for me, you ain't black.
It's just like Trump has this uncanny ability to just sway things in the direction that he wants them to head. And we've seen that with the tariff wars. We've seen that with a lot of things. But this definitely could be a magic trick where he's just trying to direct the public away. Or he's seriously trying to call out and say, look, like, this is a legit potential issue. I mean, Trump has sat next to Biden on several occasions, debated him live, right? That first debate, the crapshoot that ended up removing Biden from the ticket. He's been next to him. I'm pretty sure Trump knows who Biden is. He's been around him enough. I mean, you'd think he'd be able to tell whether or not this guy's a fake or a phony or whatever. I think Trump's smart enough to figure that out. So I don't know why he posts that this time. I don't know why he's opening that can of worms. But it definitely would be interesting to try to figure out whether or not Biden is Biden.
Yeah, I think the implications are going to be tremendous. I mean, we just had the president of the United States tell everybody that we have a really sophisticated deep state, and it's far more nefarious because all the normies are now having to face this. I mean, all of us on the dark web and us crazy people on the alt-right, we've been having this conversation for 5 years. This is old news. But for the normies, this is like, what? It's Maureen? Like, wow. Like, yeah. So the implication is going to be huge. And you bring up a good point. I don't know if you wanted to stick to this, but you said that this could potentially be a distraction. This could be the right hand while the left hand is doing something else, and it potentially could be some of the criticism that's coming out of the big beautiful bill. Did you want to jump in there?
We can. I think we've talked about it. We talked a little bit about while you were gone as well.
Thomas Massey's criticisms. You covered that?
Yeah, we covered a lot of that.
That's
Right?
fair.
Up until the Senate finishes. Actually, I don't even know if the Senate's finished and took it back to the House. But once the Senate finishes and takes it back to the House, and the House goes back through it, there's still a lot more. I don't know as though we've made any huge progress news-wise in anything new to report.
Okay.
I would say that I think that maybe Musk has a little bit more pull. I wouldn't be shocked, especially with some of the hardline stances coming out of the Senate, that there wasn't enough slashing spending. I'm really excited to hear that. I do want to see some of this bill pass pretty quickly, especially the extension of the corporate tax decrease and the no tax on Social Security. I think that those two things are going to make a huge difference in the American public, and also in jobs, things like that. The jobs market continues to grow under the Trump administration, regardless of everything that he's been doing, which has been a huge criticism, that wouldn't happen. But we've seen it continue to grow. Um, but when it comes to slashing the spending or codifying the Doge cuts, I think that we're all urgently awaiting that to happen and that to take place. And I do think that there's some hardline senators that are going to make sure that the only way that this passes is if those cuts are in there. But I think that there's also a balancing act that they're taking into place right now, because if they don't move quickly enough, we see the potential of economic damage. Whereas if they move too quickly and just allow everything to pass, then we have 4 trillion being added to the debt ceiling. So it's definitely a tricky situation. I those that are coming into the House and the Senate, uh, and have only been there for 6-8 years, I can't imagine them walking in and going, how the heck do you solve this giant crisis that America has, that people like Biden and Pelosi have caused and have watched happen? And the McCain, I mean, we'll throw the Republicans in there too. The McCains, all of those guys, the Mitt Romneys that have been sitting there. Obviously, McCain has passed, but they've been sitting there for 50 years.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So it's just, I don't even know where you start. I think that's the biggest problem that half these guys face, is they look at it and they go, where do you start? Where's your first step?
Well, I would take, the only thing I want to add to that is Thomas Massey's criticism of the bill. He's arguing that we're printing trillions out of thin air, and if we're just going to continue to increase the money supply and pay for it by devaluing the currency, that's just adding to the invisible tax on the working American people. So when we're going to introduce a bill that's going to add a tax to the American people, we're starting off on the wrong foot. But I know we're going to go over this as things start to develop.
Yeah, I think that I think this is going to continue to be a conversation. I just don't know as though it's the right conversation to have today, because we have nothing.
All right, I'll shut up, Jason. I'll shut up.
So, what else is left?
You love the big beautiful bill, I feel like, and I'm stepping on your toes.
Well, I love the conversation about trickle down economics, and that's the much larger conversation to be had, whether or not tax cuts at the top trickle down. It's the idea of Reagan economics, which many on the left claim that trickle down economics does not work. It's economic principles are very interesting to me. I love talking about them. The one big beautiful bill, I think, is one of those where it's like, okay, what is the end result going to be? How do we see this impact consumer spending? How do we see this impact end of life care? Right. And when you look at those that are the baby boomers, those that are coming of retirement age and beyond, their ability to deal with the record high inflation on the Social Security that they've paid into for their entire lives, and then being taxed on that Social Security, to remove that tax puts a lot of extra money in these men and women's hands that they wouldn't have had otherwise, and can probably make a huge difference in end of life care and end of life enjoyment.
Corinne Jean Pierre walks away from the Democratic Party to follow my own compass. She's going to follow her compass.
It sounds very much like the humanism religion that is taking place throughout our culture. I've got it's Scientology, right? The Scientology belief is basically that you become like you find your own worth, you find your own compass, you find you like
Well, it's Luciferian. It's do what thou wilt. God is you become God. It's the original sin. It's pride. It's what casted Satan from. Jesus told his friends, "I saw Satan being cast out of heaven like lightning." I mean, it was because of pride. Yeah. Keep us humble, Jesus. But I want to talk a little bit. Do we have time to talk about ice, baby?
ice baby, let's do it.
It's tearing this country apart, and I think it's an interesting conversation because been a very binary conversation, and you know me, I want to throw a oh gosh, I was going to say Molotov cocktail, but it's a little too early for that. I want to throw a wrench in this and bring up some civil liberties questions. But what's happening right now, and I'm going to point to a video. Maybe we can include this in the broadcast. But and Jason's hating me for it because now he's got to do more editing, maybe. But you have San Diego restaurant workers being detained. Attempted to be arrested by ICE agents in San Diego. San Diego, that's where I'm from. And you had some, your typical wokest, let's call them white liberals. They're in the streets, but predominantly probably upper middle class white liberals, presumably liberal, but they were disrupting the arrest. They were interfering with a federal operation, and they were throwing flash grenades, the flashbangs, the things that are used to get the crowds dispersed. And the conversation that erupted from that incident, and these incidences are erupting throughout the country. So there's a conversation that's happening where you have this left versus right conversation. Once again, it's very party line driven, where people on the left are saying this is mean, you're hurting their feelings, you're just arresting them because they're brown and they have Spanish surnames, and this is wrong, and they're just undocumented, and woe is them. And the far right, or not the far, but the right, the American right, saying finally this is what we voted for, go Trump. Let's arrest them. We finally have law and order. We're cleaning up the mess that the robot made, or Biden, or whoever that was. So, thoughts, Jason?
I mean, I just go back to go try this in any other country. Like, go try to go live illegally in any other country. I remember I was traveling I was in Belgium for like 8 weeks, and I went over to England for like 2 days. And I get to the immigration for the United Kingdom, which at the time had no part of the EU. I don't even know where that stands right now. But when you sat down with the immigration officer, which you had to talk to the immigration officer, they specifically asked, where are you staying? And if you could not provide the location of your hotel, you were sent back.
Yeah.
Because you could not be there illegally. Like, they did not want you coming in and staying.
What year was that?
This was in 2014.
Wow. Okay, well, you were probably treated that way because you're a first world American. Had you been a third world Haitian, you would have been given a EBT card in a room.
But that was at that time, that was part of the problem. Like, I was in Paris for a little time, right? And you have these Nigerians that sell little trinkets on the street, and they're all on blankets, and you watch them because all of a sudden the cops come. They grab that blanket and they'll ditch out. You'd be in the middle of like a little transaction with them, and they are gone. Like, you turn around, they're gone. Like, they do not want to be caught.
5-0.
And this is France, who at the time was pretty liberal too.
Sure.
And Paris is one of the nastiest cities I think I've ever been in. Sure. And you felt it. It was like one of the unsafest cities that you could be in as well, of like modern countries. Yeah. But go try this in any other country. Like, we sat by and watched just migrant trains enter this country. Millions of illegal immigrants come into this country.
Yeah.
And once again, we're not talking about those that are asylum seekers, because that's been one of the criticisms of the left. I've yet to see any asylum seekers that are true asylum seekers be removed. I have tons of friends that are Cuban, that are Ukrainian, that have come here on asylum. They're great people. They went through the system. They're still here. Why? Because they went through the system. Colorado Springs has a huge population of Afghanis that came here on asylum. A lot of them are great people. I've met a ton of them. Yeah. They're still here. They're not being attacked by ICE. Why? They came in legally. We're talking about the ones that came in illegally.
Yes.
That did not come here with good intentions. Or if they came here just to work and send money back, that's great. But why did you not come in through legal channels? I mean, this is not the immigration crisis that we talked about back in the Bush era, where it was, Hispanics coming across to work and send money back to their families. Like, we are talking about mass migration of people that want to take advantage of the systems in America. And when you offer them a cell phone and a prepaid Visa gift card and you entice people to come in through the border illegally, what did you think was going to happen?
Yeah.
And so the only way to fight extremism is with extremism. And the Republicans never figured this out for generations. They watched the left become more and more extreme. The right sat there and sat in the center and thought that they could fight extremism with centrist values, and it didn't work. And so the American people said, we're going to vote for Trump. Trump is going to bring extremism to the right, which is going to counterbalance the extremism of the left.
Here's my concern and here's my wrench. So I agree with everything you said. Absolutely. I am 100% in agreement with Trump's platform on immigration. All of his words, his entire position on deportation, I'm all for it. I was labeled too extreme, if I can remember our viewers, that I wanted a mass deportation campaign. My issue and what I want to say is that there's concerns for civil liberties and the line being blurred between citizen and illegal immigrant or illegal alien. What is the procedure? What is the policy for ICE? What is the best way for ICE to handle it? Is it driving around in an unmarked minivan, driving around parks with zip ties hanging out of their back pocket, walking up to people? This is instilling fear. It's instilling division. And my question is this necessary because the problem is so bad that we have no other choice? Or is this campaign potentially being weaponized by those that would desire that we be divided as a nation, because those that are divided are easily conquerable? So I just wanted to put out a yellow flag, a warning to the pro-immigration, pro-law and order conservatives that I would think are the majority of our audience and our listeners, is yes, we can all agree that we want to preserve law and order in this country, and we want sound immigration policy, and we want those that are illegal to be deported from this country. However, is it fair to ask that ICE be incredibly transparent in their procedures and policies and how they do that? And are their procedures and policies in line with the spirit of this country? And are we potentially putting ICE agents in situations where they could be making mistakes and arresting U.S. citizens or non-illegal immigrants? Because there's already been bubblings of people accusing ICE of taking people into custody that were not people that should have been brought into custody. Did I make a clear point, Jason, or did I just word vomit?
You made a pretty clear point.
Thank God.
I'm trying to find, I'm trying to find the article that says how many individuals were deported under Obama. It's something like 3 million. Like 3 million people were deported under Obama. During the first Trump administration, I believe it was 1.1 million. So essentially, because it's Trump and because it's the right, we have to, throw a fit. But if a Democrat does it, it's okay.
No, it's not okay if anybody does it. I'm no fan of a politician.
No, I'm talking about deportations.
Oh, got it. Yeah. Well, it was one of those things where I remember Obama being, you said 3 million.
It was like 3 million.
So
between during Obama's first term, 2009 to fiscal year 2012, there was 3.2 million deportations. This is an article from WUSF. I mean,
shouldn't Obama get an award for that? I mean, that's something that should have been positively acknowledged if he's deporting illegals. And I guess my bigger point is, what was the outrage from the left?
Well, that's exactly what I was saying. Like, there's no outrage when a Dem does it, but when a Republican does it, oh my gosh, because it goes back to that like Trump derangement syndrome, right? Like anything that Trump does, even if it makes sense, the left has to be pissed. Trump gets on and he goes, no tax on tips. Well, the left did something intelligent for once, and they said, that's a really good line. So Kamala Harris started campaigning on no tax on tips. So then Trump gets into office. He tries to fulfill his promise of no tax on tips, and the left is upset that Trump wants to push no tax on tips. Well, Kamala Harris campaigned on no tax on tips.
Yeah.
No, I think, once again, see, here's the difference. And I will give you this. Here's the difference. When Trump does anything, Trump makes sure it hits the headlines. And if it doesn't hit the headlines, he'll put it out himself.
Right.
Right? Kristi Noem, in putting out the videos of her with the ICE agents. Like, the publicity of the deportations is really big, which was not taking place during the Obama administration. There was no huge, cameras on the deportations. What there was cameras on was the migrant caravans. And the migrant caravans during the Obama administration and during the Biden administration. Now, if you look at the net total, sure, Trump has deported less than Obama deported, but Obama let in a lot more than Trump has let in. I mean, Trump got in office the first time, the caravans literally stopped. Trump gets in office this time, the migrant caravans literally stopped. If you look to the lead-in between the election and when Trump took office in both those times, the caravans got large and they were in a rush to get to the U.S. border. If you don't recall that, go look it up. Like, the migrants were in a huge rush to get to the border before the president changed. So when you look at net total, Obama has a terrible record. When you look at deportations alone, Obama looks like he's deported a ton of people, but there's no cameras on it. Yeah. But if you let in that many people, you should probably take out the ones that are criminals. But Biden's administration did not do that. They did not care.
Yeah, reality is crafted, not reported, right?
100%.
And
what is your own truth prevails, if that's all you're willing to listen to.
Well, that's why I want to focus in on nuts and bolts. What is the protocol? What's the procedure? What potential danger are we getting into as a country when we have ICE agents around the United States basically picking people up? Mark, last name withheld in Texas, March 2024, was a naturalized U.S. citizen originally from Nigeria. He was detained for 11 days after ICE misidentified him as an undocumented immigrant. Despite providing a U.S. passport and naturalization certificate, ICE initially refused to release him. So, you get that story. You have a story of a Sarah Johnson in Florida in January. She's a U.S.-born woman who was questioned by ICE at a traffic stop due to a database error linking her to an immigration case. So, released after 6 hours, after officers were able to confirm everything, it was determined that the local sheriff's office admitted faulty data sharing with ICE. And then there's claims of, racial profiling, that there's a lot of Latino, Black people that are getting caught up, that are naturalized citizens, that are residents, that are on workers' visas, that are working alongside illegals. I mean, this is super common.
But I mean, so I completely understand where you're coming from. And we have to make sure that we have to try our best to make sure American citizens are not caught up in this. But you also have to look and go, okay, these are systems that have been untouched for probably generations, right? Like, Trump comes into office and goes, he blew the whistle on how many paper records the United States government still had, that there was no record of it other than a filing cabinet. I mean, we're in 2025. You've allowed how many immigrants into this country? There's obviously probably a ton of systems repairs and infrastructure that needs to be put into place. But it goes back to that point where it's like, okay, you're guaranteed 4 years of a Trump presidency, and really you're probably not, because they're going to try to get him out of office again. But you're guaranteed 4 years of a Trump presidency. If you wait for the infrastructure to catch up to the absolute horrific catastrophe that we have with the immigration policies under Obama, under Biden, you're never going to actually get to the point where you get anybody out of this country. So I think if you're wanting to move fast and you're wanting to see a giant reform, but the infrastructure's not there, you're going to have some battles.
Here's what I think this is more theatrics than actual enforcement of policy is because I'm a firm believer that we're witnessing the greatest show on earth and everyone's playing their part on stage. And again, this is not what I believe. This is more, I'm just suggesting what may be happening. Food for thought. All of these ICE roundups are situations to provide red meat to Trump's base and to further divide the country because there are better ways to approach immigration enforcement that step on the toes of cheap labor Republicans that don't like immigration. Because let's remind our listeners, Democrats and Republicans like open borders. Democrats like it for the votes, the Republicans like it for the cheap labor. So we got a situation where you could have corporations getting pressure from governmental agencies that could put pressure on corporations and business owners. We could do things through the different channels when people apply for jobs. We could start enforcing companies to prove that their working force are documented citizens or they get shut down and they get fines. That's going to force the hand of these employers to fire these people, which but in effect send them back home. We don't need giant roundups if huge corporations stop hiring illegal immigrants and small businesses are getting investigated for having undocumented workforce. For example, I mean, there's roofing work done all over Colorado Springs. I would like to think that a great percentage of these laborers are undocumented, and some of them, many of them, are probably illegal. I know this for a fact because I have friends who employ them. All you have to do is call the owner of the roofing company and say, we're going to shut you down if we determine that you're employing a bunch of illegal immigrants. Guess what's going to happen Monday morning? Those guys aren't going to be working anymore.
But at the same time, that's still not going to solve the fact that the immigrants that are here for bad reasons are probably not under normal employment.
No, and those guys need to be in cooperation with the police departments and state law enforcement, and they need to get woken up at 3 a.m. with guns drawn to their face.
So I think what you're saying is the cooperation between ICE and local police
should go after aggravated criminals, those with records, those who are on terror watch lists. Those should be high priority.
But I think that you're under the assumption that the local police departments and the local sheriffs and local law enforcement in states like California, Colorado, these heavy liberal states, Oregon, Washington, where many of these illegals are housed, Illinois and Chicago, the local police is probably not going to be of great assistance to ICE agents.
No, and they're not going to get cooperation, so they go alone, and it's just a federal operation. And in places like Colorado Springs or in red states like Wyoming, we may get the cooperation of the sheriffs. It's not going to be pretty and it's not going to be perfect, but we're going to do our best to keep this country united and to protect American citizens from having their civil liberties abused. That's what we should be doing, and doing things and engaging in actions that force illegals to go home peacefully. If we can do that, why not pursue that option? Why not be peacemakers? Blessed are those who are peacemakers, for they shall inherit the kingdom of God. I mean, I think making a phone call to the owner of a roofing company is a much more peaceful way to enforce the law than to send ICE agents to a work site where it's mixed in with residents and citizens and illegals.
I don't know as though that would solve the problem. Like, we have I-9 verifications. Employers are supposed to go through I-9 verification.
It's not getting enforced, apparently.
But even if you did enforce it, right? Even if you did enforce it, I don't know as though somebody would go, well, I can't get a job legally, so I'm going to go home. I think that people will find a way to still make money enough to live in this country.
It'll become hard.
Not to mention, they're probably like, all I have to do is wait out another 3 years, and there's a chance that a Democrat will be back in office, and I can go back to receiving my food stamps and my health care and everything else because I just have to wait it out for 3 years.
Yeah, there's no silver bullet, Jason, but I think that my suggestions are more effective and avoid the problems that are occurring compared to the way that we're currently doing it and the path that we seem to be on. That's my point. I'm not saying that
I think that the very minute percent of those citizens that have been rounded up, that should not have been rounded up, is so small. Now, obviously, they're being reported and blown up, and squeaky wheel gets the grease, and they're being made to look like this is a super common issue. I don't see it as a super common issue. Obviously, there's infrastructure issues. Obviously, there's database issues. Um, but I think that they're very small in compared to the amount of dangerous illegals that have been taken out of this country. And I think that we still have to prioritize the amount of dangerous people being taken out of this country.
Absolutely.
Now, if you get detained for 11 days, I think that the U.S. government should probably compensate you something.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Take it out of my back pocket.
But I don't believe that this is some widespread issue. I think these are isolated issues. And also, you have the human nature element of it too. Whereas, not all cops are good, as Jim would say. Jim's not here. He'd remind us, not all cops are good. Not all cops are bad, right? And there's probably some people that the human nature of them, they want to get them.
Yeah, they want to crack skulls.
They're going to do things that they probably shouldn't do.
Yeah,
and so how much of this truly is a system issue versus, some guy pissed off a police officer, and so he's going to do everything in his power to make sure that you're detained for as long as humanly possible.
Well, allow me to ask you a difficult question then. Do you believe that there's a climate of fear sweeping through immigrant communities in the United States right now?
Sure.
Do you think that that's collateral damage and that's necessary, considering that the problem that we have, that these communities must live in fear, including residents and citizens, because of the immigration crisis that we're under right now?
So repeat your question one more time.
My question is, do you believe that it's excusable? Do you believe that it's acceptable for the current climate of fear that we have in this country, considering the problem that we have in the way that we're handling it? Is that acceptable, and is it okay that if we have this climate of fear in this country right now because of the way that we're enforcing our immigration?
Is it okay that if you break a law and you're worried that you're going to be caught, that you broke the law of the land?
Absolutely, they should be worried. My concern is that you have the communities that include citizens and lawful residents are living in fear because maybe it's propaganda. You're going to be racially profiled and you're going to get rounded up because ICE is indiscriminately rounding people up.
I don't think that's happening. I think that there's.
But is that the perception, though?
But once again,
COVID thought everybody was going to die.
Who are you hanging out with? If you're caught up in a raid of an underground nightclub and you're a citizen and you're afraid that you might be racially profiled as an illegal immigrant, maybe you shouldn't be at the illegal nightclub.
But what if it's not a nightclub? What if it's work? What if it's Tuesday at 2:00 in the afternoon and you're trying to work so you can pay bills? Like, a lot of these citizens.
Let's put it this way. I in Colorado, this would have been 10 years ago, they found that almost all of the little Mexican restaurants were laundering money for Mexican drug cartels.
Yeah.
Right?
Was it Taco Stir?
Like all of them.
Yeah.
Like almost all of them. There's like 300 restaurants in Colorado laundering money for the Mexican cartel.
Right.
Right? Like, I'm pretty sure that if they're going into businesses in San Diego, those businesses are probably not operating the way that they should.
Well, it was an Italian restaurant, an upscale Italian restaurant in that particular case. And I know the area, and it's not, I would really doubt it was a laundering operation. I think that what happened in that situation, without knowing the details, is that they had a high level of illegals employed by the restaurant. And that's a great case in point example where ICE could have called a meeting with the owner and said, we're going to round everybody up if they don't go home, rather than having this big show for YouTube to divide the country up into pieces. That's the point I'm trying to make. That I think there's a better way.
I got that point. But I also think that we're talking very isolated incidents, and there probably was something else that led them to make the decision to go in the way that they did.
Yeah, there's probably more to the story. I'll give you that.
There's something going on, or there was some criminals in that building that they didn't have the choice to call and say, hey, can you just please get your, just get them gone.
Maybe one of them was on a terror watch list.
They're probably targeting 2 or 3 of them that were involved in other criminal activity. I don't know the full story. Obviously, we don't necessarily get all the facts, especially not from the media. But something would tell me that incidents like this are extremely isolated, and they probably happened for for a reason that was for the best interest of the American public. And I do believe that.
No, I think that's fair, and I'll agree with you that that's a serious possibility. And I want to wrap things up with just one last point, just to leave this at your feet and for our listeners. I'm really concerned that this rallying and this applause for ICE agents and law enforcement to be conditioning for the American right to be blindly obedient supporters of law enforcement. Law enforcement is a weapon. It could be used for good, it can be used for evil. And so I just would be very careful for my conservative friends and my law and order friends to be very careful in how much support you lend yourself to law enforcement, because that could be used against you. That's it.
All right. Well, this has been Spiritual Insurgency. Join us every day. We'll be back tomorrow. God
Peace,
bless.
peace, peace, peace.